Hi, everybody. My name is Susan Storm, and today we are going to be exploring the ENFJ personality type. If you're not sure who I am, I'm the founder of a website called psychologyjunkie.com, where I've written over 1,000 articles about the 16 personality types, and I'm also a certified MBTI practitioner. Let's go ahead and dive right in. I always like to start with the basics. First off, let's look at what does ENFJ actually mean. The E in ENFJ stands for extrovert. Extroverted personality types have energy that flows to the world around them, to experiences, people, possibilities, opportunities, activities. The extrovert's energy is looking and focusing outward. Next, the N in ENFJ stands for intuitive. Intuitive personalities are more interested in what's going on behind the scenes and in abstract associations and concepts than they are in the real, tangible facts of daily life. A sensing type, which is an S personality type, looks at what they can see, smell, touch, taste, whereas an intuitive personality type is looking for the intangible things. We'll get more into that later. The F in ENFJ stands for feeling. ENFJs are feeling types. This means that when they have a decision to make, they're looking from their heart. They're looking at how is this going to impact people emotionally? What are my values regarding this? How are people going to be affected? Next, the J in ENFJ stands for judging. Judging types approach life with a plan. They like to know what to expect. They like having a certain structure. Rather than having a really open-ended exploratory approach to life, they like to map out their life and have a general direction and vision for where they're going. So that's just scratching the surface of what it means to be an ENFJ personality type. Let's dig deeper by looking at the ENFJ's cognitive functions. The cognitive functions are essentially the tools you use when you're making decisions and you're observing the world around you. Everyone has access to 8 different cognitive functions, but everyone has a priority and a natural tendency to value 4. And I call these the primary cognitive functions. And of those primary cognitive functions, there's one that is the dominant function. This function is the one that a personality will live and breathe, and it's the constant background process at work in a person. The dominant function for the ENFJ is extroverted feeling, or FE for short. So what is extroverted feeling? Extroverted feeling is a judging process that focuses on values and emotions and making harmony in the world around you. Extroverted feeling types naturally assess and orchestrate the emotional atmosphere. They use feelings of harmony or disharmony to determine acceptable or unacceptable behavior. So an ENFJ, if they were traveling to another country, would easily pick up on the cultural values of that country, and they would probably learn about those values before they entered that country so that they could respect those values and get along and have harmony with the people in that country. Knowing what is expected societally, culturally, is very important to extroverted feeling types. This doesn't mean that they don't care about their own subjective values, but they're going to place priority on making sure that other people are comfortable and making sure that they are respecting the values of the group. Social harmony is extremely important to extroverted feeling types. They're deeply affected by the moods of the people around them. They need positive feelings that come from interpersonal acceptance and belonging. ENFJs are often really driven to nurture relationships, to establish feelings of connection, and they are likely to suffer from insecurity or feelings of low self-esteem when they don't have good social skills or when they are forced to exist in an environment where there is a lot of conflict or an environment where they're getting a lot of criticism. They really want to feel that they have strong emotional intimacy with important people in their lives. Because harmony and good connections are so important to ENFJs, they do tend to frown upon people who behave in ways that disrupt that friendly cohesion and cooperation. They really appreciate people who have good people skills, people who are very unselfish and kind. And they tend to derive their personal values from what impacts the social atmosphere, what it promotes or increases social harmony. So they would make positive value judgments when social harmony is increased and negative value judgments when social harmony is decreased. So when you see an ENFJ becoming bad-tempered or even preachy, it's when someone has negatively impacted the mood and someone is creating a disruption in that social cohesion and cooperation. Does this mean that ENFJs don't have any personal values? Absolutely not. We all have our own personal values. We all have our own personal morals and ethics. It doesn't mean that ENFJs are just going to be completely fake and put on a mask to fit in with whoever they want to fit in with. They will have their own personal values, but as much as possible, without betraying those values, they will try to find a sense of camaraderie and cohesion with the people they're with. So they may turn up or down the temperature on certain parts of themselves, depending on how they feel it's going to be received by the person that they're with. For example, perhaps an ENFJ is a part of the Democratic Party, and they're at a church event, and most of the people there are Republicans. They may have a strong personal value about some of the things that the Liberal Party stands for, but when they're talking to an elderly neighbor who goes to that church, they're not going to immediately start talking about their personal political beliefs in an effort to argue that person into admitting that they're right. If it comes up, as tactfully as possible, they will defend their position while also trying not to be demeaning to the other person's position. They can modify how they present themselves so that they can stick up for their values in a way that seems very disarming and friendly, rather than in a way that seems really preachy and condescending. Now, if you're dealing with an unhealthy ENFJ, then that can be different. Unhealthy ENFJs can form in-groups and out-groups. For example, an unhealthy ENFJ may have their in-group or a certain clique. They may get off on forming intimacy through gossiping about people in the out-group, or spreading rumors, or ostracizing people in the out-group, because sometimes people bond and create more intimacy by bullying other people. Now, that's unhealthy extroverted feeling. Unhealthy extroverted feeling does have that kind of gossipy, cliquish, fake, phony vibe to it. However, average to healthy extroverted feeling is not like that at all. If you've met a healthy ENFJ, they're some of the kindest, most generous people you'll ever meet. They do really care about making sure that the people around them are comfortable, the people around them feel accepted, that they have an opportunity to really get to know other people in an intimate way. ENFJs often feel like they're emotional sponges, like they're soaking up the feelings of other people. They're deeply affected by other people's feelings. They could be having a really good day, but as they're spending time with someone who's really grieving or sad, they might start feeling those feelings inside themselves. For this reason, it's important that ENFJs also take time to preserve their energy and regularly get alone time, because being an emotional sponge or an empath can be really emotionally taxing over long periods of time. But it can also mean that they have great insights into people, into how they're feeling, into how situations will affect them. This is why when ENFJs have a decision to make, usually the first thing they're going to think about is, how is this going to impact other people? How are the people that I love going to feel? And what decision is going to be the best for everyone else? What's harder for ENFJs is to just think about what's the best for them personally. Often, they put themselves on the back burner so that they can just take care of everybody else. And that tends to be a pattern in their lives. And sometimes they overdo it to the point where they end up in situations that maybe aren't even fulfilling or making them happy, but they just kept making decisions with others in mind instead of ever really stopping to think about what they wanted personally. Another quality of extroverted feeling is that extroverted feeling needs to externalize emotions in order to really understand them. Extroverted feeling types often need to vent and to talk about their feelings in order to gain clarity on them. Because their feeling process is extroverted, it means it needs to be directed outward in some way. ENFJs are really good at understanding other people's feelings, but that's because the other people's feelings are out there. Their own feelings are harder to access because they're in here. And the ENFJ's introverted processes are intuition and thinking. So trying to process your own feelings through intuition and thinking is a lot harder than trying to process them through feeling. For this reason, ENFJs often need to seek out other people to be able to talk to about their feelings and about their judgments and opinions and perspectives. When they do this, they can hear their own voice and they can then process those feelings because it's being externalized. All extroverted functions work best when there's some external way to express those things. Like for me, I'm an INTJ, I have extroverted thinking. And so I do really good when I talk out my plans out loud or I speak out my logic out loud. And for an extroverted feeling type, they need to talk out their feelings. They need to talk out their perspectives and their values. They need to hear that. If you've ever wondered, why does the ENFJ in my life, why are they always trying to talk to me about their feelings or trying to talk out a decision with me? Can't they just go be alone and figure that out like I do? That's wouldn't be as effective for an ENFJ. They really do need that back and forth. I need that interactive process. Some ENFJs do write their feelings out, and when they write them out, then they read them out loud back to themselves, and that can be another effective way of processing their feelings. They just need to hear those feelings out loud. Extroverted feeling also helps ENFJs to know where they stand socially and where other people stand socially. They can usually tell who the bigwigs are in a social situation versus who are the pariahs. And they usually know what to do so that they also are not in that situation of being the pariah. They usually know what's expected and what's frowned upon, what's esteemed socially. They have a great social awareness. Some ENFJs will use this in a negative way and just try to climb the ladder and be the most revered person in the room, and they will do this for the wrong reasons, whereas many ENFJs will use this to just connect with people. They might be able to mentor the pariah in ways that they could become more accepted in the community. Healthy ENFJs like to make people feel included, and they're curious about people who are different or who are a little bit individualistic and idiosyncratic. I have a good ENFJ friend named Denzel, and he is really good at just appreciating those people who walk to the beat of their own drum, those really interesting, unique people, and I think he's just super curious about them and has a special place in his heart for them. My sister is also an ENFJ, and she is the most non-judgmental person you'll ever meet. Unless you're a mean, unfriendly bully, then she can get pretty judgy about that, but good, healthy ENFJs are really interested in welcoming the misfits into the fold and helping them be part of a community. Martin Luther King Jr. was an ENFJ, and he was really good at helping the world to see that even though we are different, we're all deserving of the same things. We all have the same fundamental human qualities. And he was really good at opening people's eyes to the reality that we all need each other. You'll often find that ENFJs have this skill of bringing people together, of unifying people together. Next, let's look at the ENFJ's auxiliary function. This is called introverted intuition, or NI for short. Introverted intuition is very concerned with patterns, ripple effects, predictions, and implications. It's less focused on what you can see, smell, touch, taste, and observable facts of everyday life, and it's more concerned with what you can't see. So introverted intuition searches for grand patterns, themes, and implications in order to understand the meaning and significance of everything. It operates unpredictably, often through flashes of insights. Many people with introverted intuition get these aha moments, these epiphanies, where they suddenly understand how something is going to unfold in the future, or they suddenly understand the deeper meaning or a clue in some situation. Introverted intuition seeks to understand through an abstract sense the essential nature of all things and their complex interrelationships. It's always looking for meaning. Why did this happen the way it is? Why is this important? What is the dance of the universe? Why are we here? These big picture questions are often play on the mind of the introverted intuitive types. So rather than seeing a situation for just what it is right now and being really fixated on the details of that situation, introverted intuition wants to understand it in the broadest, most complex way possible. For example, you're on a boat and you're drifting through the sea, you're on your friend's yacht or something, if you're like a really wealthy person. I've never been on my friend's yacht, but everyone else is thinking about all the fun things they could do. Let's have drinks or let's swap stories. Whereas the ENFJ might be sitting on the yacht thinking about how small they are in the grand scheme of things and wondering why they're here in the universe, why everyone is here at this specific time. Is fate at play? Is there something they could do to make the situation more meaningful, to understand something deeper about life through this situation? So this very abstract, futuristic quality of introverted intuition, this desire to make everything more profound and to find the profound in everything. Conversations can be surface level, that's fine, that's necessary in order for people to get comfortable, but the introverted intuitive type wants to get deeper and to understand what's really going on with someone, especially when they have extroverted feeling in their function stack too. So introverted intuition isn't really so interested in gathering concrete information and little details that's actually could be boring or challenging for them. They're more interested in peering behind the curtain. They're trying to look at the cosmic meaning and significance of all things. ENFJs like to imagine the shape of possible futures. They like to imagine how things are going to unfold. They tend to detach from the moment and instead focus on how things will be 5-10 years from now. And they like listening to people and gaining insights about that person and what their potential could be, or maybe something they're going through that isn't immediately obvious. Introverted intuition is always looking for what's not immediately obvious. Introverted intuitive types are fairly rare, so they tend to go through life thinking, why is everyone looking at all these details and things that really are really small picture, they're really micro? Why aren't people looking bigger? Why aren't people thinking about the grand scheme of life? Like, why are we here? What's the meaning of our lives? Let's try to make our lives as meaning-filled as possible. And when you combine that with feeling, ENFJs tend to be very inspiring people. They're very much about harnessing people's gifts to inspire them to live for a higher calling, to inspire them to have more meaning in their lives. I like to use Morpheus from the Matrix movies as an example. He's a fictional ENFJ, but still one that does a great job of demonstrating those ENFJ skills. He has this charisma, and he believes in his vision even when everything else would seem to say he was wrong. He just knows. And that's one thing you'll find about people's introverted intuition is they often have the sense they just know how things are going to unfold, or they just know what something means. So Morpheus is one of those people who brought all these people together to find truth. And he had this very prophetic quality to him, this very insightful quality to him. He just knew things about people without being directly told. And you'll find that with ENFJs as well. They seem to just know things about people without having to be told. And they sense people's potential without having to give them a detailed job interview. And they are very motivated to inspire people to live up to that potential. Introverted intuition, in many ways, I like to describe it as knowing where the last domino is going to fall. Introverted intuition is not as concerned with what's happening here at the first domino. It's more concerned with what's going to be the implication of when I knock that domino over. What's going to be the implication when that last domino falls? It's very forward focused. And so many times ENFJs will say, this is where society is headed, or if you make this decision, this could be the future implication of that. And sometimes people wave that off. They're like, that's ridiculous. I don't know how you would know that. But then the thing actually happens, and the ENFJ spends a lot of their life feeling like they're in a constant state of deja vu because they imagined this happening before and now it's happening. They spend a lot of time contemplating the future, and not just in a worrywart kind of way, but in a really insightful, analytical way, so that when the future actually arrives, often they feel like they imagined it previously and they're just repeating something over again. So introverted intuition is a very powerful part of the ENFJ personality type. It supports their feeling side. So not only are they concerned with other people's feelings and absorbing those feelings and creating connections with other people, they're also intuitively grasping insights about people and insights about where society is going as a whole. Next, let's look at the ENFJ's tertiary function, and this is called extroverted sensing, or SE for short. Extroverted sensing is all about the world of the senses, what's going on around you, the experiences you can have. Extroverted sensing wants to be immersed in the physical world rather than detached and stuck in your own head. So in many ways, extroverted sensing feels like the antithesis to introverted intuition. Introverted intuition is interested in what we can't see, in underlying meanings and implications and the future, whereas extroverted sensing is interested in what we can see, in the facts, details, and experiences around us, and particularly the present moment. Now, the tertiary function is not typically as mature as the dominant and auxiliary functions. You can have maturity in this function, you can have power in this tertiary function, but it tends to be more fleeting than with the dominant or auxiliary functions, which come more naturally and are really meant to be the leaders of the personality type. However, extroverted sensing is important, because if you are an ENFJ and you don't have a good relationship with extroverted sensing, you can find yourself really stuck, constantly looking ahead and not enjoying the present moment. or missing pertinent facts and details because you're so focused on the abstract. So ENFJs who have a healthy relationship with extroverted sensing not only know how to envision the future and connect with other people, they know how to enjoy the moment and spot important details now. But other ENFJs over-rely on extroverted sensing and they get into what's called an FESE loop. Because the tertiary function is extroverted, it's a natural comfort zone of the extroverted personality type. So ENFJs who are extroverts can have a tendency to fluctuate between extroverted feeling and extroverted sensing, bypassing introverted intuition because the introverted world is just not their as natural of a comfort zone for them as the extroverted world. And an ENFJ in an FESE loop can look very dynamic and very connected with people and their feelings, but also impulsive and reckless and a little bit more shallow than a typical ENFJ. A typical ENFJ has a lot of depth, a lot of insight, and is paired with a bit of pragmatism from the extroverted sensing side. But an ENFJ in a loop is very impulsive. They live for the moment, but in a way that is immature. So when an ENFJ is constantly bypassing introverted intuition and going straight to extroverted sensing, they may be a lot of fun to be around. They may be very charismatic and engaging, but they may make really impulsive, reckless decisions in the heat of the moment without thinking ahead. Because introverted intuition is one of those functions that really helps them to think ahead and to visualize how things are going to unfold so that they can make wiser decisions. But ultimately, extroverted sensing is there to help the ENFJ. It helps them to appreciate the moment. It helps them to be more mindful of details. It helps them to relax and have fun and enjoy leisure and to get into their bodies instead of just being so head focused that they're not paying attention to their bodies or not prioritizing their own health or well-being. It's very common for ENFJs to go through the day and be so invested in their relationships and their ideas that they forget to eat or drink. And the extroverted sensing side of them is very physical, and so that can help them to be more attuned to what their body needs and to what's going on in the world around them. Next, let's look at the ENFJ's inferior function, which is called introverted thinking, or TI for short. Introverted thinking is interested in understanding things in depth. It's about accuracy and precision. Introverted thinking is interested in the nuts and bolts of how something works. And when you have introverted thinking paired with an introverted intuitive personality type, they're interested in how ideas and concepts work. They're usually very interested in understanding everything they can possibly know about something abstract like psychology or spirituality or some of the scientific fields that are more in the realm of theory than they are in the world of memorizing facts. People who have introverted thinking in their primary function stack are very interested in clarifying their thoughts and making sure they're accurate and that they're not leaning on logical fallacies to believe something that's inaccurate. It's very concerned with clean data. Now, because introverted thinking is inferior for extroverted feeling, it doesn't tend to feel as natural for them, especially if they're on the spot and being observed by other people. When ENFJs are in the world of others, they tend to rely more on their extroverted feeling strengths. The strength of understanding how people tick, the strength of reading people and responding to their emotions, making a good impression, creating harmony. This is where they're going to lean more naturally in the world of other people. Whereas if someone were to ask them to get into a debate using only logic, they might feel a bit insecure and vulnerable. On their own, they tend to feel pretty comfortable with introverted thinking. They like analyzing things in depth. They like challenging their mind. I know so many extroverted feeling types who love doing Sudoku puzzles or brain teasers or watching documentaries about things that interest them or reading really technical books. But in public, we tend to feel more vulnerable using our inferior function. We're more concerned or scared that we're going to get it wrong. The inferior function is the source of a lot of our insecurities in life. So for ENFJs, debating, arguing, using only logic can be pretty stressful for them unless they feel like they're really a master in that particular field. This doesn't mean that they're not good at logic or that they don't have an understanding of how theories or systems work. It's just that they tend to feel more confident in the world of other people's feelings and the world of emotions and the world of insights and predictions than they do in the world of taking something apart logically, especially on the spot publicly. So introverted thinking is the part of us that wants to not understand just how to use something, but to understand how that thing works. If you give an extroverted thinking type a phone, for example, they're going to just be interested in how to use the phone to get a job done. That's extroverted thinking. It's more concerned with efficiency and using things to achieve a goal, whereas introverted thinking is more concerned with how does this phone work? What are all the pieces of this phone? How can I understand all the nuts and bolts of that phone? If you're an introverted thinking dominant type, you approach everything in life this way. How does this work? What are the components? Can I understand how this all pieces together? Now, if you're an ENFJ and you have introverted thinking paired with extroverted feeling, you apply that introverted thinking to people. So instead of applying introverted thinking to necessarily an object, I don't know, understanding how your dishwasher works, you're applying it more to a relationship. So when you're with people, you want to understand all the nuts and bolts of that person, all the components of that person, to understand how the person works. And you want to understand not just on a surface level of how can I get along with this person, but how can I understand this person's psychological components? And it really gives ENFJs this deeply analytical side when it comes to their relationships and to understanding people, which is probably why ENFJs are so overrepresented as psychologists, because they work so well at understanding people and they really get a thrill from understanding people, because not only does that tap into their extroverted feeling side and their introverted intuitive side, but it also taps into that introverted thinking side where they can apply these psychological concepts they know everything about to people that they really care about. Extroverted feeling types, because they are a little bit more insecure in the world of logic, even if they are good at logic, they tend to feel very vulnerable or insecure in that world of logic. Because of that, getting criticism can feel really hard for them. Whenever someone gets criticized and it's regards to their inferior function, they tend to feel like it just kick in the gut shame about it. And that's very true for ENFJs. They really want, when they present things, for to be logically consistent and logically accurate. And so sometimes when they are trying to present an argument for something to believe in, they spend forever thinking about it, trying to make sure that their argument is as bulletproof as possible. So getting criticism for their logic can feel really, really rough for the ENFJ. And it's easy for them to just change gears and try to get back to an extroverted feeling place instead of trying to stay focused on the introverted thinking world. Because if they're under the microscope for their thinking, for their introverted thinking process, for how well they can logically construct or deconstruct something, they tend to feel nervous, insecure, and worried about their efficacy in this place. Whereas if they're just dealing with people and relationships, that's not so hard. They feel really competent there. Again, this does not mean that ENFJs are bad at logic. It just means that this isn't their natural comfort zone. That's not their superpower. Their superpower is instead, how are the people around me feeling? What is their potential? How can I bring people together? How can I motivate people to have a higher calling? How can I grasp insights about people? That's their more automatic way of existing. All right, so now that we've covered the cognitive functions, and of course, there's way more we could discuss about those, but now that we've gone over those, let's look at some signs that you're an ENFJ personality type. Sign number 1, you want to inspire people to be their best selves. So ENFJs are constantly on a quest for personal growth. They're always trying to level up, to be better, to improve. They're constantly evolving and learning. Life without meaning and forward progress feels really tragic to an ENFJ. So they're always trying to hone in on what's someone's purpose or potential and what their own potential is. They want to ignite something in other people that drives them to live up to their potential. They're very skilled at seeing people's gifts and talents and showing them how those can be used in a positive way. Sign number 2 that you're an ENFJ, you're always thinking of what you should do. You're very driven by a sense of should or should not. You are guided by those values, those personal values as well as social values, what other people need, what's important to other people, what society needs as a whole, what humanity needs as a whole. When you experience a quiet moment in your life, you often find yourself analyzing your choices and trying to determine whether you're living in alignment with your ethics and with your life goals. You have so many shoulds or should nots in your life guiding every decision that you make that sometimes it's hard for you to relax. Sign number 3 that you're an ENFJ, people tell you their life stories. ENFJs often have a very empathic, open, friendly demeanor. Because of that, people tend to confide in them about all kinds of things. It's not uncommon for you to be approached by strangers who feel like sharing a secret with you. It's not uncommon for you to be at a social situation and start talking to someone, and all of a sudden you're hearing everything deeply dark secret that they could possibly share with you. If that is an experience that you encounter often, then welcome to the world of being an ENFJ. Sign number 4 that you're an ENFJ is that you want to articulate your vision. You have a vision for what you want your life to be, and you're always trying to sharpen that vision, to sharpen that image of what you think your life should be and what you think the meaning of it should be. You also want to give people a picture of what they can attain in life if they just work to live up to their potential. As an idealist, you want to show people a world where there is more equality, compassion, justice, and empathy. Number 5, you enjoy discussing taboo subjects. While you tend to have a good sense of propriety, you can also have a surprising interest in things that are bizarre or controversial. While sometimes shy away from discussing religion, politics, or potentially offensive things, these things are really fascinating to you. You're more interested in big picture concepts than small talk, and because of that, you're drawn to subjects that people feel very strongly about. You'd rather discuss psychology than perhaps celebrity gossip, and you'd rather be confided in about a serious relationship problem than make small talk about fashion or face cream or the weather. You're interested in things that really make you think, I've never thought about that before. Maybe if I discuss this weird taboo subject, I'll have some new insight about life or the person I'm talking to. That's really exciting for you. You don't feel like things have to stay within these really traditional bounds. You like thinking outside the box and playing with ideas that are new and novel. All right, so these are just some of the signs that you're an ENFJ. I have an article that has many more signs of being an ENFJ, and I'll link to that in the description. You can find many more articles about ENFJs and all 16 personality types on my website at psychologyjunkie.com. You can also check out my ebook, which is called Discovering You, Unlocking the Power of Personality Type. Please can subscribe to see more videos like this. I would love to hear from you in the comments as well. Thanks so much, everyone. Goodbye.